Guys, today we are going to start writing our rough draft, but let's first go over what all we've accomplished so far. We started off with our brainstorming and we selected our animal that we want to research. Then we made a plan and asked ourselves some questions about what we needed to look up when we were conducting our research and our note taking. So when we were researching, we were answering these questions that we came up with, and we had to remember that we were looking at these specific topics of habitat and diet and interesting facts, special features, and what all they look like. So these questions on these papers helped us to know what we were looking for when we were looking up facts about our animals. And we took notes on our note paper. So since we visited last time, I've added a few more things to my notes that I found when I continued my research after we met. So my notes are kind of messy, which is okay. But you can see that I use little bullet points. So each little dot here is a different fact that I found out. Okay, so when I go to write my rough draft, I'm going to use those dots with my facts to write my sentences. My notes are not in complete sentences, so that's what we're going to work on right now, is making our sentences. In our rough draft paper, we have in our canvas, it looks like this, and you may write right on here if you want to use the tool, or you may print this out if you want to use this paper at home. It goes through each section, so each of our categories. We start with an introduction, which tells our reader what our topic is about. And then we'll talk about habitat. We'll talk about its food or diet. Then we'll talk about what they look like. And we'll add our interesting facts. And we'll write a closing, which ties it all together. So we'll start working on this together. I'll show you how I would start my paper, and then you can work on your own. And for this part, we'll use our notes. Now, I don't have this paper right in front of me, and so what I'll do is just use some paper I have at home, which is fine. You can do that too. I have some nice writing paper here, so I will use that. And if you need to submit it to your teacher, you could go ahead and just take a picture of your work and send it right in. So I know my first heading is going to be the introduction. Now, the introduction, as we just watched in that video, states our topic. And it kind of gets our reader interested in what we have to tell them. So you might want to start with a question or a fun fact. And remember, our rough draft is not our final copy, so we can make mistakes, we can spell words wrong. If we want to come back and add another sentence in, we can do that, because we will. And we will be revising. So that means we'll be changing our mistakes and fixing them. Okay, so you could start off with something like, so like we said, our introduction gets our reader interested in wanting to read our paper. So I started with a question. Did you know sea otters use tools to help them eat their food? Okay, so I wrote a quick introduction. I wrote, did you know sea otters use tools to help them eat their food? I learned a lot of interesting facts about sea otters. Read my report to learn more. So that's a great introduction. It doesn't have to be super long. I did add one interesting fact, and I'm hoping that my reader is now interested in learning more about sea otters. So I can move on to my next section, which is about habitat. So when I look at the habitat part, I'm going to use my notes to help me. In my notes, I jotted down that they live in the Pacific Ocean, in North America and Asia. They live within a mile of the coastline. They usually stay in harbors or kelp forests because that helps protect them from the waves. So all of that is about where they live. So I'm going to take those, since they weren't in complete sentences, and just rewrite them into a complete sentence in this next section. So I would start with my animal's name. Okay, so I just used my first bullet point and turned it into a sentence. Sea otters live in the Pacific Ocean in North America and Asia. Again, I'll use my other information and just turn it into a complete sentence. I have to have my subject, which is sea otters, right? And what they do to make it a complete sentence. So sea otters like to Okay, so I wrote sea otters live in the Pacific Ocean in North America and Asia. Sea otters like to live in harbors or kelp forests that help protect them from waves. And I'll just look back in my notes to make sure I added everything that I wrote here. And I noticed here it says they live within a mile of the coastline. I didn't add that part. So I might want to add that sentence to the end. That just means they don't live right out in the middle of the ocean. They live kind of close to the water's edge. So all I did was take my notes and added them into a complete sentence, which is the paragraph here under the heading Habitat. I'm going to continue to do that with each section of my notes. The next part would be about diet. So if you scroll up on your iPad, your next section would be diet here. Since I'm working in my notebook at home, I'm just going to write that next section on my next page. And again, I'll refer to my notes and what I wrote down about what they ate and just turn it into a sentence. Something like sea otters eat crabs, fish, squid, octopus. See, I know I spelled that wrong. Sea urchins, and sea urchins. And then I would say they eat 3 to 4 times a day. And if I found out any other information about their food and diet, then I would add that there in that paragraph. Okay, so you'll do that for the next few sections, what they look like, and then your interesting facts. And then when you get to your closing, you would say something like, I hope you liked learning about sea otters, and maybe you'll get to take a trip someday to see them in real life. Something like that. You're just going to tie in everything that you told about in your paper. So you could even start it off with something like, in conclusion, sea otters are we learned that they were mammals, are interesting mammals. Just like your introduction, it can be short and sweet, but it just ties your paper together. It's sort of like saying goodbye. You don't have a conversation with somebody and just they say, okay, bye, have a great day. That's sort of what a closing is in your writing. It's just saying goodbye to your reader. So you would write something like, in conclusion, sea otters are interesting mammals. I hope you liked learning about them as much as I did. That's a great, fine conclusion. You could also add in one more interesting fact if you had something else to say about it that you didn't mention, but it just kind of ties your paper together, and then it says goodbye to your reader. Okay, guys? So over the next few minutes, go ahead and work on writing each of your paragraphs for each section. Remember, you have the introduction, habitat, you have diet. You'll write about your interesting facts and what they look like in each section from your notes that you found. And then in the next few days, we'll go through and we'll edit our paper or fix any mistakes. I might have some spelling mistakes in my paper. I probably spelled words wrong. I may have some punctuation I need to fix or some capital letters I need to add, but we're not going to worry about that today. We're just going to fix that the next time we come back to our paper. So even if you mess up, this doesn't have to be super neat. You can, if you spell a word wrong, you can cross it out and write it underneath. Like, this is just your rough draft, so it's okay for it to be messy. We'll work on our final copy with pictures, nice and neat, in a few days. Okay, guys? So have fun writing your rough draft, and we'll meet back again soon.